Hey everyone, today we're doing a build that is very different from pretty much everything I've ever done in Grim Dawn. Insofar as you can do kind of differenty things in Grim Dawn. I decided to make a character that is a Blademaster based around bleeds. Um, so we're just going to start with, yes, I made a Blademaster. It's sort of one of those class combos that's like, everyone makes one at some point. And this is mine, at least for the time being. So, like I said, he's based around bleeds. And when I initially started the build, I wanted to really base it around Lapis Lupus here. Because I like wolves, obviously. And I kind of wanted to use the, I kind of wanted to really use the ability and utilize the item. So I was like, okay, it's a bleed item, so let's make a bleed character. And my two ideas for it were going to be either a warder based around Blade Arc or a Blademaster based around either Blade Arc or whatever the Nightblade brought to the table for bleeds. And I ultimately went with the Nightblade side of things. Now in the future I may still do the warder based around Blade Arc because it's a two-hand build. It would be a two-hand build, and I could use one of the giant scythes, the Farmstead Liberator, which is a bleeding scythe, and I think I kind of want to try to do that again, do this build again with that weapon in mind, and another Lapis Lupus because I have a bunch of them floating around. But anyways, here's the build. On the soldier side of things, I went all the way to Warcry and Field Command for 10 points each, and then I threw 10 points into Military Conditioning. I put 1 point in Markovian's Advantage, Fighting Spirit, and Zolhan's Technique, because they're extra little abilities that when they proc, they'll deal, more damage for us. Plus, Fighting Spirit Fighting Spirit will give us a nice 8-second little damage boost as well. And that's pretty much it for the soldier side of things. I could alternatively, I'm using Shadow Strike, but I could alternatively use Blitz. They're basically the same move. I mean, they have a little bit of difference, but they're more or less used for the same reason. And I did think of doing Cadence with Fighting Form, and I could still potentially do that in the future. But if I do Cadence with Fighting Form, I'd pretty much switch out the Nightblade side of things I'm using. And I would maybe do that if I were to switch my weapons. But my weapons right now are based around Whirling Death and Circle of Slaughter. So that's why I went with the Nightblade side, because of the Bloodborne Sabers. They just give you a big bonus to Whirling Death and Circle of Slaughter. And I was just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go deep on Nightblade on this. So you start with, I did 1 point in Dual Blades, Blagothian, Bell, the Shears, and then Emarest is Quick Cut. And then, I maxed out Whirling Death. 1 point in Ring of Steel, and then I maxed out Circle of Slaughter. 1 point in Shadow Strike to get us around. Maxed out Pneumatic Burst, and I threw 1 point into Breath of Blagothian. And, this is like our trademark heal ability. I have 1 point in Veil of Shadow and in Night's Chill, and in Phantasmal Armor, but I may take these 3 points out and throw them possibly into Devouring Blades for the Blade Trap, because I'm using this ability a lot, and I found it really handy, both as a damage ability, but also as a trap, predictably enough. And, I might actually pull these 3 points out of these abilities and throw them in here. And I'm actually considering doing that with these 3 points as well. But right now we're going to leave it like this. And then, that's a potential future change. And I think this would be the next ability I would rank up. I would maybe consider going full in on Nightblade to get Blade Spirit, throw a point in Execution, and then throw a point into Nadala's Justifiable Ends, and then Nightfall, because I think it's a really powerful setup you can get here. Oh, and I maxed out Anatomy of Murder, because it's bleed damage and cunning, and that's just pure damage for us. And the bonus damage to humans is nice as well, because you fight a lot of humans in this game. Real quick, attributes. I did a 1-to-1 split with, I think, 5 points into spirit because my rings and amulet needed that extra 5 points, and it was just easier to throw the points in spirit. It's not like I'm lacking on physique or cunning. Now, I will point out that this character is actually really squishy, and I may invest in trading out some DPS for armor and resistances. And one of the side things I wanted to do with this is I had a request for an attack speed build, and this is kind of that. Like, I'll maybe do a video that's really dedicated to getting as much attack speed everywhere, but right now, this guy was based around doing a lot of speed stuff, and I would actually trade a lot of that out for some heavier armor, definitely, and some more tanky pants and boots. But for now, we're going with like the super speedster. Actually, fragile speedster is a good description for this. So, like I mentioned, the weapons are Bloodborne sabers, both of them Bloodborne sabers, and I put in a bloody whetstone on one of them, and an Alaren's blood on the other, because Alaren's blood is just a ridiculous single attack for one. I mean, it just deals a crap ton of damage to a single target. And then the bloody whetstone gives us decapitate, which for us is actually a lot of bleed damage, potential bleed damage, with just a lot of damage in general. Though I'm not using either one on my left attack. On my left attack, I'm using Bloodbath from the Slaughter Relic. And the Slaughter Relic is perfect for this build. I just wish I didn't get Heartseeker as its completion bonus. For the chest, we are using the Fanatic's Overcoat. I have a Hallowed Ground in here more for that elemental resist. And I don't have one for pluses for any of the abilities relevant to this character. So really that could be an Ancient Armor Plate Ancient Armor Plate, or really anything at this point. I might actually Ballistic Plating would be a good choice for that as well, for the projectile avoidance. I'm 2-setting the Explorer's set for that 8% total speed bonus. Shoulders are just some crafted up shoulders. Of Nature's Bounty is a really good health-based suffix, so I just grabbed that up. And again, 10% elemental res. Brawler's Gloves, I think, are good gloves for this build. It's got that attack speed and bleed damage. Internal trauma damage is actually a secondary damage for this guy. But I don't remember if he actually has a lot of things that can trigger it aside from Zul'Han's Technique, and I think it's just Olaren's Might can trigger it as well. Does that do it? No, not really. Yeah, it's pretty much Olaren's Might, and I think only Zul'Han's Technique is his other thing that procs it. But I do consider it it'd be tertiary, because it's physical and pierce and bleed are his primaries, and then secondaries. So yeah, it's a tertiary damage. So yeah, I do have internal damage popped around the character. If I were doing the Blade Arc build, I think I'd want a Blade Arc, like dedicated Blade Arc build, because of Laceration, giving you that internal damage over time. On the other side, if I do that Warder, I think I would try to get to Laceration. I had something. There is something that gives bonuses to Laceration, but I couldn't quite get to it. I don't remember what it was. Anyways, the belt is the Warpath Girdle, +1 to all soldier skills, and all of the damages we want. Crit damage is, like, just bonus crit damage is awesome. And, attack speed. So, perfect belt for this build because of the soldier side of things. Badge of the Crimson Company, again, pierce and bleed and cunning and attack speed, bleed res, +2 to enemy murder, just a nice medal. And I threw an attuned lodestone in there for its total damage and crit damage, not so much the lightning damage. I mentioned Lapis Lupus before, and that's what we're using for our amulet. And then I have the set for the right hand of Carnage and the left hand of Carnage, and this is that's where the +2 to Laceration is. So yeah, this is kind of more for going deep on both. I actually don't think that's a good combination. I'm really thinking about it. it might be better to use these two rings to really get the most out of Whirling Death and Laceration if you put Blade Arc on its clean sweep cooldown, because you could just whoosh, and then you'd be able to go to town with Whirling Death. And actually, I think that'd be a pretty good build. It might be something that's worth checking out later. But for now, we're gonna keep what we have now. Helmet's a Mask of Delirium. It's mostly because of that little bit of total speed. And a Runestone for its defenses. But yeah, I went with Ectoplasms to just eke out a tiny bit more energy regen. Because energy, like, this guy uses it a lot, but he doesn't have energy issues. He'll usually pick up more Elixirs of Spirits than he'll be using. Oh, and a Dread Skull. I forgot to mention. Dread Skull. Perfect again for us. Total speed, bleed damage, pierce damage. If I could choose some things to gear a little better on, I would want a little more offensive ability. But I think our OA is going to be fine for now. But yeah, I would maybe want a little more OA and definitely some more defense abilities. Or just defensive tankiness. I'd want to be able to take a few hits and not worry about it. I mean, he's not terrible with it, but it is definitely noticeable that his health will drop, and then I'll heal, and then it drops and then heals. I'd want just a little more consistency on that. So that covers the build, and we're going to go into the Dermepteron lair after the cut. Okay, so I wanted to point out one thing before we actually get running in here. You can see how fast this guy books it. And when we hit our pneumatic burst, we really book it. So our main things to do here are to... It's going to be a little easier once I get into this more. So our main things we're going to want to do is we're going to want to pounce on the enemy with Shadow Strike and at least try to get Bloodbath on the enemy. Because you'll notice that the enemies are going to bleed to death quite a bit. And it gets really hilarious on bosses because that's when I tend to pop Decapitate on top of Might of the Direwolf and Alarin's Might to just bleed down the bosses as best I can. Now we're also going to want to make sure we Warcry a lot. Oh, and I want to point out something. You're going to see a lot of Ring of Steel that isn't me casting it, because these are great. The Bloodborne Sabers, the 15% chance on crit attack feels a lot more than it actually is, and just having that happen is awesome. So yeah, it's this build, I've actually had a lot of fun playing it, a lot of fun leveling it up. The only complaint I have is I have too many little abilities to use. So it's like I can't like constantly be decapitating Alarin's Mighting and bloodbathing just because I don't have the finger dexterity for that. And I'm not actually going to try to speedrun this area, because I'm actually, like, I really do have fun playing the guy. Like, I understand better now why physical is so, like, ridiculously good. Yeah, it's like I just let that guy bleed to death. And that was me, like, losing a ton of health. Quickly, and that's where I said, yeah, he's kind of squishy, but... Still. It's not like it's that bad. Yeah, and I chose the queen because she's got the 2 phases. So hopefully I won't just mess this up and die instantly in here. So I really love the combination of I really love the combination that is Warcry with bleeds, because it's just such a great, like, you Warcry and enemies lose a third of their health and they're bleeding to death. So it's just like, it's just really, really nice to have that happen a lot. And it quickens up your bleeds as well. Run up here, because there's you. Oh, there we go. Wait a second. That chest wasn't down here the first time. That's... Damn it. Now, I mentioned he kind of has energy issues, and, like, you're seeing them right now, insofar as his energy issues exist. So yeah, we get away from that, because we're actually going to let the boss bleed to death a little bit. Cause yeah, we can do a lot of, like, jump in and then we pop a bunch of stuff and then just let her take the bleed and then we run away a little bit, and you'll see like 4,000, 2,000, 2,000. So you actually see a lot of bleeds pop off on bosses like that, and we don't even like need to do a lot of work. Now, if there's one problem with having bleeds as your main source of damage, is I think undead either have a lot of bleed resistance or they're just outright immune to bleeds entirely. And that's why internal trauma damage exists as like the physical dot, because that actually does affect everyone. So that was a little look at a bleeding Blademaster. I don't really have a name for it, and I don't really want to do the alliterative bleeding Blademaster build. So, yeah, that's another build that's sort of checked off my list. Sort of an attack speed build. I think if I were to do a dedicated attack speed build, just as a note, the Duelist Sabers that give, I think it's like +2 to Amaresta's Quick Cut, would probably be your better bet, because they have like 15% attack speed or something. And I think they also give a bonus over here to, it might be, is it Laceration? No, it gives a, I think it's a +2 to Amaresta's Quick Cut and +1 to Markovian's Advantage. So that would be another way to do a Blademaster if you really want to go fast, because you'll get a lot of attack speed out of those two weapons. So, don't forget, I have my Patreon, patreon.com/wolfoverclocked. I'm also on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, all Wolf Overclocked. And be sure to check out my non-gaming channel. It's also just Wolf Overclocked on YouTube. So, thanks again for watching, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.